When it comes to problems that arise at work, the biggest culprit always comes back to communication issues. We think about all the different challenges that we experience at work on a day-to-day basis, whether it's structural or projects that we're working on, or the different conflicts that arise with teams. And how often issues can be avoided simply by being more effective communicators. In this video, I'm talking about the 5 questions we should be asking ourselves anytime we have information that needs to be communicated to our employees and to our coworkers. Let's get into it. So, the first question we should be asking ourselves is, who needs to receive this information? If we're about to go through a restructuring of the entire organization, I anticipate it's likely all employees need to receive this information. But are there other individuals who also might want to know about this information or might need this information in order to minimize any disruptions to our operations? In fact, we might want to consider, do our customers need to know about this? Do any partners we have, partnering organizations, need to know about this restructuring? What we're doing here is centering our thinking around each individual group and the information they're going to need. What often happens in these scenarios or situations is we send a blanket message out. And so we send a blanket message out to all of our customers, all of our partners, all of our employees, our board, saying we're going through this restructuring. But the problem there is that not everybody needs to receive that information in the same way, and they're all going to have their own interests in how this restructuring or how this information is going to impact us specifically. Once we've addressed the who needs to receive this information, now we need to figure out what. What specifically does this stakeholder group need? What information needs to be shared with them? And as we think about this question, we can challenge ourselves by asking ourselves, well, what would we want to know? If we're an employee of the organization, what do we want to know, or what are we going to want to know? We're certainly going to want to know, when is this happening? We're certainly going to want to know, how is this going to impact me and my job? How is it going to impact my coworkers? Is this org restructure going to lead to job cuts? Is it going to lead to me having to take on additional responsibilities? What we're doing here is taking a methodical approach in asking asking ourselves, what is all of the information each individual stakeholder group is going to need? Next, we have to ask ourselves, when? When does this message need to be shared? So often when information comes across our desks, the easy response and convenient one is we need to get it out as soon as possible. Everybody needs to know about it, so we have enough time to plan for it. And so everybody has enough time to prepare and adjust to this change. But that's not always going to be appropriate. When it comes to new bits of information or new pieces of information, sometimes we have additional information we need to gather or collect before it would actually be appropriate to send that message out. At the same time, if an individual stakeholder group is already under immense pressure, or they're already really focused on a particular project, maybe it makes sense to withhold that information, allow the team to focus on finishing up that project, and then once it's finished, now let's redirect our energy toward that next initiative. Now let's redirect their attention toward whatever this new challenge or issue is. Question number 4 is, why is it important they receive this information? The really important aspect of this question is it ties in really well with the what needs to be included. When we ask ourselves the why is it important this information is included? What we're inevitably going to do is find more information that is probably important to include. At the same time, by asking ourselves the why, we're giving ourselves more of an opportunity to provide additional details and context for how these decisions were made and why we believe these decisions are appropriate. So if we're doing this organization restructure, well, why is it important? Why is it important we're doing this restructure? Certainly we would expect it's going to help the bottom line, but are there potential positives for our workforce? Are there potential positives for our clients, our customers? If we're doing this restructure and it's potentially going to lead to job cuts, well, what do we want to make sure those stakeholders, particularly our current employees, know? Are we providing additional support? Are we going to have additional support on hand for employees who are going to ultimately be terminated or let go? What are those resources? When are these things happening? And again, why is this the right thing to do? The last, but certainly an important question we can be asking ourselves is the how. How are we going to share this message? Not all information we have as organization leaders, whether it's mid-level managers, frontline managers, senior executives, not all information needs to be shared equally. Certainly, on issues that are a little bit larger in scale or more significant, it might be appropriate to send an email, but it's probably even more appropriate to host some type of town hall or team meeting. What that does is give ourselves an opportunity to get in front of our audience and to universally communicate a message. In instances where change or the initiative we're talking about or communicating with our workforce is much less significant, well, are we simply using emails? Are we making phone calls? I think about one organization I was working for a few years ago, and one of their practices was every single time a bit of information was coming out, and we think about how much information was coming out during COVID, particularly in the healthcare industry, every time a bit of information would come out, they would send organization-wide text messages and they would fill up employee email boxes. Well, what they found was that most employees were completely ignoring the text messages because of the amount of them that were coming through, especially during off hours. At the same time, because information was constantly being shared and changes were constantly happening, employees were clicking delete of all new emails that were coming in because the information was overwhelming. There was too much coming their way. By asking ourselves how what we're doing here is making sure that we're delivering information in a manner that not only best helps us deliver and send that information, but also increases the likelihood that it's going to be successfully received by our audience. Again, so many communication issues in organizations are the result of our own distractions, our own stressors, our own additional challenges that we're dealing with, and we neglect to consider what's the best way to communicate all of these individual messages. By asking and answering each of these 5 questions as outlined, we're going to be much more successful communicators as organization leaders. Hey team, if you found this video not only helpful but enjoyable, hit that like and subscribe to Time for Development button and continue investing in yourself.